I was introduced to Undertale on its release date back in September. My best friend was talking to me over Skype, eager and bouncy because the game he had been prepping for years and years was finally out. Of course, since I didn't like RPGs, I didn't really show any interest and thought it was just the newest fad and it would die out in a few months. My friend eventually gifted me a copy of the game from Steam, though since he was a really kind guy, but again, I didn't really care. By that time, I knew a few things about the game due to Tumblr and Instagram among other things. I knew there were 2 skeleton brothers, a sexy robot character, and a kind goat figure. Anyways, fast forwarding to that night. I was in my bed when the thought of the game came into my mind. Then I finally thought hard enough to give it a try. I mean, the game was pretty much free since my friend gifted it to me, and I'm the kind of guy who wouldn't let free things go to waste. That afternoon after work, I parked around the corner and I opened up my Lenovo computer and then opened up Steam. I clicked the game and began to play it, and then I got hooked. I found myself drawing a few pieces of fan art here and there. I even started a Tumblr Ask blog for Sans, and then tried my hand at a fan game called Undertale Zero Frisk. I was more of an Undertale geek than my friend at this point. The one thing I really liked about the game though was the secrets. Who is W.D. Gaster? Who's the spoon creature that tucks you into bed in the true lab? Who is the protagonist and what's their backstory? Those questions went unanswered. Getting to the point, there was a Reddit discussion urging people to dig into the code of the game, mess with fun values, look at the secret rooms, etc. I decided since I had low Reddit karma, I could find something big and get some upvotes. I could even get some Reddit gold or become well known in the Undertale community, I thought. I then opened up Undertale and then Firefox. I began to download a special software that would enable me to look into the inner code of the game. I then boot up the software and linked it into Undertale. I began to look throughout the code. Most of it was just piles and piles of gibberish, things I didn't understand, but the midst of it all was some sprites. I found some walking sprites for Chara that weren't in the game, along with a sad papyrus sprite I had never seen. I decided to download a few more programs to dig even deeper. After downloading them, I linked them all into the game. I don't think anyone had ever dug as deep as I did, because I had dug so deep I found things nobody else has found, such as a full set of sad Toriel sprites, a small sprite for the Steam logo, and an unidentified woman with broad shoulders, presumably an unused amalgamate. I called it a day and decided to post my findings on Reddit, but something urged me to search more. It seemed sort of fun to see things nobody else had ever seen, kind of like finding gold in a pirate ship or finding a new type of animal. So I boot up the programs back up and looked harder, and eventually found something that looked like a NAT bash code. Due to my involvement for the Gravity Falls series, which is notorious for its ciphers, I knew what it was and went to a decoding site called Rumpkin. It spat out a download link to a file entitled Undertale F. I was curious and thought it was just a footnote for the developer to look at, but it turned out to be a beta copy of the game. It downloaded as a file with what appeared to be a monster heart, you know, the upside down white hearts that appear at specific points in the game, such as killing bosses in a no mercy route. I closed the Undertale window, and the first thing I did after that was hook up the programs to look at its code. Before looking at any files though, I decided to play through the game first. I did a short neutral run and beat the game, having a bit of trouble with Photoshop Flowey's battle. The game played somewhat normally besides for a few misplaced tiles and things like that. I then decided to do a pacifist run after that to see if anything else changed, and again it played as normal. Well, except for the fact that the character dialogue seemed off, like it wasn't right. Maybe it was the fact that I read through it so many times. I then decided to just play through the last option, No Mercy. I reset the game and entered it with the name No Mercy. I was instantly landed in a starting room with Flowey. Flowey's dialogue was just telling me not to do a No Mercy run and try to go for a pacifist, or at least a neutral run instead. This dialogue was not in the normal game, as I had to reset on a pacifist run before in the normal game, so I thought I was in for a treat. I decided not to heed the warnings Flowey gave me and went ahead on the No Mercy run. I was greeted by Toriel after that, and continued. As soon as I hit the training dummy, it knocked over. Toriel's expression shifted and was sad. Upset at the fact that I had hit the dummy, Toriel then looked to the side as we continued into the next room with no words. I eventually made it to Toriel's house. I pretty much knew the routine at this point. Talk to Toriel, make her go downstairs, kill her, and then leave. But before doing that, I decided to go to the kitchen and see if the dialogue changed. There are the knives. I was a bit intimidated by this, as the usual dialogue says, "Where are the knives?" But it seems the player had found them. Instantly, the character sprite was equipped with a knife in their hand. I chose to ignore it, and I thought it was just a beta feature. My character went to talk to Toriel, hiding the knife behind their back the whole time. Toriel continued as normal into the basement. I tried to go downstairs, but an invisible wall prevented me. Then my character suddenly just stopped moving, and I couldn't control them anymore. I was confused as to what was going on, so I waited and waited. Nothing happened for what seemed like 5 minutes. But then I heard a sound. The sound played when you kill a boss. I couldn't move downstairs, so I simply went outside. I saw a papyrus sprite standing there, and when I tried to talk to him, he would just say "test" in all capital letters with no picture added to the text box. After talking to him, I went back in the house only to be instantly transported to Snowden. I saw Sans walking throughout the forest normally, doing his own business. He walked by the big branch and inspected it before continuing. That was when I saw the shadow of the player character to the left. The player continued and advanced towards Sans, who was standing there. The player extended their hand without the knife. "Don't you know how to greet a new friend?" The player character then took their knife as Sans fell to the ground, fatally injured. I was a bit surprised at what happened, but I pressed on anyways. The town of Snowden was abandoned when I advanced there, and the puzzles leading to it was completely missing. The word search was covered in snow as I could only see "IC." He had very cartoony arms with white Mickey Mouse gloves on them for some reason. I continued walking throughout Snowden, and there was no sign of Papyrus or really anybody. I had encountered no enemies whatsoever, and then, suddenly, Flowey popped out of the snow saying absolutely nothing, just staring into the player with a neutral expression. Flowey popped back down after his sprite shook in what was presumably horror. The player character's knife shone in a few moments after Flowey sunk back down. I was a bit shocked yet again, and wondered what happened, but again, I just continued. Eventually, I made it to Waterfall without a challenge. Nobody came yet again. As I got to the bridge section, Undine stood there with a neutral expression just like Flowey before backing up from Frisk and getting her spear ready. Undine stopped for a minute and then proceeded to say, "You're a living example that there is no more damn good in this world." She proceeded to lay down on the floor with her spear next to her head. The numbers 9, which were spread around about 15 times, were displayed as she stabbed herself without any effort, rolling aside to Onion Sands Lake. I thought it was just the beta, and that these dark things were removed to give the game a more family-friendly approach. Anyways, Onion Sand themselves was just there, doing absolutely nothing, floating as if they were a boy in the water. The game was being played for only an hour now, and I was already in Hotlands. The water machine was broken as 2 streaks of water poured from its sides. There were 2 black holes in which they poured out of. The out-of-place waterfall statue was there, playing the music box tune of Asriel Dreamer. Raindrops fell from thin air into the statue as an orange umbrella covered it. I walked up to the statue and inspected it as the text said, "The music box is playing inside the statue." The statue has "No Heroes" carved into it. Ignoring it, I continued onwards into the lab as Dr. Alfie's quickly sped off somewhere with a couple of Snowden and Waterfall inhabitants, including Heat's Flamesman. I looked at the bookshelves only to have the game tell me that their pages are all ripped out. The game told me I can make out a singular word on one of the ripped pages saying "hero." A Abruptly after that, I saw the character was standing at the barrier with Asgore. Asgore's battle came on the screen. The player character didn't hesitate to defeat Asgore as his battle sprite fell to the ground. Nothing happened after that, and the game froze, so I restarted it. I was feeling sort of scared now, as the game became kind of unpredictable. I was instantly teleported to the ruins when I started the game. Flowey was there with a sad expression on his face. The grass around him was tinted gray. I walked past him and through the ruins as Froggits and other enemies were tinted gray as 2 blue streaks were falling from their eye holes. I eventually made it to the entrance of Toriel's house, now a gray like Asgore's. Papyrus' sprite was absent. I was really scared at this point, shaking, horrified, terrified. Is this really what Toby Fox had in store for the game? Shoving those thoughts aside, I entered the basement and continued onwards. There was no sound, just a smiling player with the same knife in their hands. The player walked up to the ruins exit room and stopped dead in their tracks. Toriel was laying on the floor, looking dead and lifeless. Her overworld sprite face was bent in agony, like something had terrified her as she was just killed. I was shocked at this and put my hand over my mouth. This seemed like it was too dark compared to the generally happy outlook of Undertale's surface. This Undertale F could have been the real version of the game. It could have destroyed lives rather than saved them. I, like before, pushed those thoughts aside and walked up to Toriel's sprite. What I saw made me gasp and turn on the lights as her sprite was crying. It had no visible eyes and her left horn was broken. Her face was twisted into a frown as she said nothing. And then the game said, "She's near dead. She can't see you here. Move on." So gathering my courage, I moved into the next room, carrying towards after the ruins exit. I was now in a pitch black room as a blowing wind sound played. The same one heard before you sell your soul to Chara. Flowey was standing in the center of the room with a neutral expression. "Are you happy now? Is this what you wanted?" The flower spoke. "You made her die because you wanted to kill with one intent, to show no mercy. You made her try and kill herself, but now she's just suffering." This seems slightly out of character for Flowey. "It's me, your last good whim. Just a tiny insignificant flower. It's only a matter of time before I become corrupt too. Just like the others in the garden, you monster," he said. And the black room was lit up as I was shown gray withered flowers all around Flowey. It just goes to show that there's no good in this world, no matter how hard heroes try. The player character then instantly chopped Flowey into 2 parts as the game crashed on me. I just stood there staring at my computer's background for what seemed like years, pondering why Toby would do a thing like this. When I tried to start the game back up, it wouldn't let me and just displayed the same sprite of Toriel, staring with a sad expression next to a black background as the game title displayed, "No Mercy." Looking back on it now, maybe the game was right. Maybe heroes don't really exist, since they're always overpowered by evil. No matter how hard anyone tries, we can't stop evilness. It's a human instinct in all of us. Toby taught me a valuable lesson, making this beta version of the game. He showed me that heroes can't exist, it's impossible, and I'm just sitting here, typing this down at 3 in the morning, thinking like nobody has thought before. I think I'm going to cry.